I'm telling you these stories for you to have something to fall asleep to, and tonight's story is called My Mental Coffin. I knew I wasn't ready to move to Los Angeles after high school. I had been raised in a mental coffin, that is, as a conservative Baptist. It was a funny name for a school, Freedom Baptist Academy. It was only one of those three things. Baptist. Was it free? Hardly. Was it a real academy? Only by Betsy DeVos's definition. Some of my teachers were college educated and qualified to teach classes. Others got hired simply because they checked the Love the Lord box on their application. My 6th grade teacher, Marcia Smith, was probably the latter. She had just graduated from Bob Jones University, a fundamentalist South Carolinian school that banned interracial dating until the year 2000. Even though she couldn't have been over 25 years old, Miss Smith had tired eyes. She was thin and frail, and resembled a helpless woodland creature. Rowdy, religious 6th graders were too much for this woman. She spent so much time concerned with the decay of society and the moral collapse of our once Christian nation, she had no time to crack a smile. In fact, when she started crying over one social issue, she would let us leave the room for recess. The bell would sound, and if Miss Smith was crying, we weren't allowed to leave. We were prisoners at our desks, staring out the windows at children from lesser grades, laughing and playing on the swings. Oh, to have Miss Worth or Mr. Elders for a teacher. Bruce Jose announced his family was going to Florida for spring break, and he brought in pamphlets showcasing women in pink and purple bikinis. One look at the brochure sent Miss Smith into a tear-filled spiral. She made everyone sit down as she lectured us about the lack of modesty in America. Nice girls keep their fannies under their skirts at all times, she cried. For the next hour, she was inconsolable. A few weeks later, Miss Smith was crying about abortion, which at least was a real issue, when the lunch bell rang. The hallways filled with children from other classes, but we knew we weren't going anywhere. The sanctity of life took precedence over our growling stomachs. In February, we were forced to skip a special assembly in the gym where a former NBA star was going to share his testimony of his ongoing virginity. Why weren't we there? Because Miss Smith was holding a prayer vigil, beseeching the Lord that, quote, the legal drinking age be raised up to 31. She went on and on for 2 hours this time, crying out to God before her captive audience. For that, we had to miss out on getting an autograph from a real pro athlete / virgin whose name I cannot recall. That's probably why, by the end of the year, Brian Haryu emptied the spit valve of his French horn on Miss Smith's photo. It wasn't the most gracious gesture, but don't ever take recess and lunch away from a 12-year-old boy. I finally got Mr. Elders as a teacher, which was awesome because he didn't weep openly in class. He may have cried at home from time to time, but that was none of our business. I did get in trouble once in his class. For some reason, I drew a picture of my friend Lisa Coe. I drew her as a fat nurse, which is odd because she was neither fat nor a nurse. And so what if she was? To make matters worse, I made a list of my friends who were witnesses to my illustration. Next thing I knew, I was being summoned into the hallway by my teacher. He sent the note home to my parents with his additional admonishment on the back. Danny made this picture of Lisa and sent it around to be signed. He meant it for fun, but Lisa was somewhat hurt by it. Would you please talk to Danny about this? Thank you. In Christ, K. Elders. I made another bad decision in 6th grade after getting high marks on a quiz. As a result for my score, Miss Smith told me to choose anything I wanted from the prize shelf. I made the unfortunate choice of a comb and mirror set. I thought it was cool and kind of showbizy, like maybe the kind of thing Tony Danza would use to feather his hair in his dressing room at Who's the Boss. But selecting a woman's comb/mirror set didn't go over with Bruce Jose, aforementioned bikini pamphlet pusher. He stole my vanity set and pranced around the room, pretending to do his hair in the handheld mirror. Sure, I had made a bad choice to bring undue attention upon myself, but that was no reason for every boy in the class to start hating me. The hating would continue until we left for Brazil my junior year. My dad certainly did not approve of any fashion risks. He wanted me to look as conservative as a Southern senator's aide. When I bought shiny pants that resembled leather pants, he made my mom throw them in the trash. He said leather pants came from the rock and roll industry, which was started by homosexuals in the 1950s. There was no Wikipedia back then, so I couldn't verify the information, but it sounded like fake news. I wanted to wear a denim jacket, and he said absolutely not. God wants us to wear denim on the lower half of our bodies only. That's what it was meant for. He instead bought me a school Falcons jacket that made me look like the jock I was not. I bought a skinny tie, and my dad snatched it from my closet and tossed it in the back of a garbage truck when it drove past our home. In 6th grade basketball, we played in opposing Baptist school. I didn't take a shower because I wouldn't dare get naked in the locker room without curtains on the showers. Girls don't realize how many boys refuse to clean themselves publicly, unless they've perhaps watched The Wonder Years. So to hide my stench, I doused myself in Drakkar cologne. I mean, I really bathed in that fragrance. I hadn't learned that less is more. Back in class, the room started to smell like a reduced-to-sell drugstore cologne. If a cartoonist illustrated the moment, he would have to draw fumes coming off my body. It was so humiliating. Miss Smith tried not to make a big deal out of it, but it was clear the nauseating smell was coming from me. She suggested I put my sweater back on, even though I was still sweating from all of that running up and down the court. I did put the sweater back on, and it didn't help. Within minutes, she opened the windows to, quote, air out the room. This was January in Michigan. It was 0 degrees outside. All of my classmates had to put on their winter coats, scarves, and mittens and sit at their desks, shivering. But indoor blue lips was the price they all had to pay, being in the same room as me. Adolescence became a reclusive time, complete with long walks at night I called depressions. I didn't know what real depression was, but I probably suffered from it. I began writing the initials MFE after my name on my homework assignments. The teachers never asked me what it stood for, but Jana knew. Mocked for eternity. It was my way of expressing that I felt I would be subject to mockery for the rest of my life for being different. The boys in my class had formed a wolf pack mentality, even turning my former friends against me. Danny, Tim Bancino whispered underneath the bleachers, the guys don't want me to be friends with you anymore. I'm sorry. I don't know what to do. I still want to be your friend, but I can't. Tim had been my friend since we were toddlers in the church nursery. We had sleepovers at each other's houses, even though his parents were Italian and therefore, quote, possibly not real Christians. He was my favorite contestant on the school bus, who played my handmade versions of Wheel of Fortune. Yes, I made a cardboard wheel that really spun, and yes, I had prizes for the winners of each round. But now, Tim wasn't allowed to be my friend anymore. We can talk at church, he tried to add positively, but if I talk to you at school, I won't have any friends anymore. Why, oh why, had I chosen that comb/mirror set from the prize shelf? It was basically a self-award-winning trophy that announced I was different, and bashing unusual kids wasn't frowned upon in my school whatsoever. It was a Christian virtue. It meant that one day God would allow you to make it into the kingdom. I was always looking for a new identity that would fix me. On Monday, I would show up to school with a new resolve, to be a whole new Dan. I would show up to school and not say a word, giving everyone the silent treatment. I was trying out a new persona, the quiet guy. After about 6 hours of silence, Jana would cave in and ask, "What's wrong? Why aren't you talking?" "I'm shy." I'd venture. Oh, stop it, you are not. You're the most talkative person I know. Not anymore. This is my new personality. I rarely speak unless I have something really important to say. I'm an introvert. She would roll her eyes, walk away, eat a cherry fruit roll-up, and wait for 2 days until my real personality returned. It never lasted long. For a while, I was into the Sally Jesse Raphael show, and I made a very unfortunate choice in eyewear, mimicking the talk show queen's red signature frames. Mine were the size of snare drums, and they didn't win me any new male friends. On one gloomy afternoon, I decided my personality was going to be a comic book artist. But then, a few hours later, someone made fun of my drawing, so I immediately abandoned that personality. Fortunately, I had a wise beyond her years friend in 8th grade, Rachel Tenbrink, who passed me a note. I don't think it's stupid you're making a comic book. I don't think you're weird for doing it. You say people will mock you and think you're dumb, but people think I'm dumb because I like to write. I can sit down with one idea in mind and begin to write. I think it all sounds a little out of the ordinary. How about you? I'm a deep thinker, and I have to come up with a solution to every problem, or I won't give up. No one understands me because they don't really think hard about things. They're social bugs. When I have something on my mind that I really need to say, I can put it in writing and say it. Otherwise, it comes out wrong, and it causes confusion. Even though our problems are different, we have the same results. People think we're weird because we're different. Oh well, that's life. So cheer up. Rachel. P.S. Never change. It was sound advice like hers that led me to pour my own troubles and anxieties into writing. When I wasn't being graded on it, writing was a pleasure. I no longer had to reach a word count or expand the margins on my typewriter to fill pages. When my mom alerted me of the chance to learn to produce television at the public access station, I found solace and salvation in honing my new favorite hobby, writing. From my plush red office chair, pulled up to the built-in desk Grandpa installed in my basement bedroom, I fell in love with the process of going inside my head and expressing my thoughts on the world through the dialogue of my fictional characters. That was perfect, as I had no interest in being who I was in real life.